Okay, welcome everybody to the Mentoring Careers Conversation. I'll be quick so we can hear from all these wonderful people, but I wanted to introduce our moderator who will facilitate this conversation. And I also want to remind you that you can go to the exhibitor space and look up all the folks on this panel have their bios or CV and a short questionnaire that we asked them to fill out with some stories. So you can look into there and then also leave messages there. So Dr. Donna Westphal-Rudd is an associate professor in the Department of Agricultural Leadership and Community Education, where she works with undergraduate students planning careers as a secondary agricultural education teachers and doctoral students planning to pursue faculty positions with teaching appointments. Embedded in all her work in teaching and learning is an emphasis on developing teachers as allies for all underrepresented people in agriculture. Her educational program planning work also includes collaborations with women and women agricultural community educators and university faculty in Senegal. So thank you, Donna, and thank all of our wonderful speakers today.
Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to work with Maria in this conference. It's just an honor to be here. And I would really like to get right started with hearing from each of our panelists. We've asked them to take turns introducing themselves. And as they do so, talk about what is one thing that has made their career trajectory unique. And I'd like to start with Amanda, please.
I knew I would be first alphabetically. So, hi everyone, good to see you. I'm Amanda Crump. I am an assistant professor of international agricultural development at University of California, Davis. And as I won't go through my long CV because you can see that in the exhibitor room, but in short, my research is centered on understanding the adoption of technologies by marginalized people. And I was not the only trivia champion, but thank you for the shout out. I'm a farm kid from Idaho, and I never thought that I would ever end up, working abroad, much less, working with amazing people or being at UC Davis. And so I was thinking about my career trajectory and realized that I'm kind of on my sixth career. And so I feel like that is kind of intimidating to think about all the different times I've had to pivot. And so I would say that maybe that's what has made my career trajectory unique, is all the times that I've been able to pivot and mostly pivot in and out of academia. So today, as we talk, that's kind of where I think I'll situate my niche is. I started in academia when I was in my 20s, and then I left, and then I came back, and now I'm almost 50 and I'm back again. So thanks. I'll turn it back over to the next person.
All right, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here. Beth, would you please share next? What makes your career trajectory a bit unique?
Sure. So I'm Beth Holtzman, and I work for the University of Vermont Extension with programs that serve women farmers and beginning farmers. And for me, when I was thinking about what made my career trajectory unique, was that when I was in college, I had no intention of working in agriculture. I had even no idea that a thing called cooperative extension existed. And I knew next to nothing about agriculture. I majored in history with a double major in environmental biology and religion. And my first career was as a print journalist, which I think was a great foundation for the kind of work I do now. And I think is a great foundation for many other careers. It's because good reporting requires both curiosity and a critical mindset. It requires attention to detail and also being able to place those details in the bigger context, seeing the forest and the trees. It requires good observational skills, good listening, and especially being mindful of your own biases and continually asking yourself how those assumptions and biases might be affecting the questions you ask or how you interpret what you're seeing and hearing. And I use all those skills every day in my work.
Thank you. Bata Maka, would you please share your story? What makes your trajectory unique? I think you're muted.
Sorry.
No problem.
So I am currently the regional representative for the McKnight Foundation. They have a program called the Collaborative Crop Research Program, and I'm the representative for West Africa. I did things before. I have a background in anthropology, but I believe that what makes my career unique is the fact that I'm a gender specialist and a male gender specialist. I was hired in my first job, not my first job after the doctorate, not because of anthropology, but because of being a gender specialist. And now, of course, anthropology helps me a lot. I'm equipped with a lot of skills to dig deeper in issues. And yeah, and this is what led me to where I am, I can say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Daniel, would you please share next?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel Sumner, and I'm the Assistant Director for the WGD program at Virginia Tech. And I think similar to what Beth said, I think something that makes my story is unique. Originally, I did not want to work with people at all. I wanted to be an archaeologist. I wanted to examine the material cultural remains and kind of that interpreting what may have been. But kind of after a few seasons of dusty archaeological fieldwork in the American Southwest, I found myself wanting to know more, to interact with people, to understand what they believed, how they interacted with their environment, the decisions they made, with the challenges that they were presented with. I wanted that aspect to engage and interact with people and individuals and learn from them. And that, again, for me, continuing to enhance those listening, those reflection, and those thinking skills as I move forward in my now career with Virginia Tech. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. And I'm smiling because I too, in the high school me said I would never be a teacher and I would never go to a university, work at a university. I've now learned not to say never. Laura, if you could share what's something unique about your career, we'd like to hear that next.
Sure, thank you. I'm Laura Zaleski. I'm a communications specialist with the Feed the Future Innovation Lab for Fish. And I think a unique aspect of my career trajectory is that I've worked in a lot of different aspects of development work. So I started out in research. I was an undergraduate and then graduate research assistant with the Women and Gender and International Development program at Virginia Tech. And before I went on the PhD path, I thought I wanted to get a bit more professional experience. So that's when I started working with the International Food Policy Research Program and focused a bit more on program management and project management. And that was a really great learning experience as well. And most recently, I've kind of transitioned into the world of communications. And I'm really excited about translating the findings and the impacts from researchers into more accessible products and outputs for the larger community to read about and learn about. So it's been a bit of a windy path.
Well, thank you. I think probably that windy path is what makes you such a wonderful contributor to our panel today. And thank you. Halima, would you please share next?
Thank you very much, Donna. It's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Halima Dishang, and I come from a country called St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the Eastern Caribbean. I am a senior lecturer and head of department for the Institute for Gender and Development Studies, Nitobar Unit, it's a mouthful, of the University of the West Indies. And I'm currently on secondment as a Deputy Permanent Representative and Ambassador to the United Nations for the permanent mission of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We were voted onto the Security Council for a period of 2 years. So I'm here until December 2021, working with them. My area of work is primarily on gendered violence and feminist methodologies. And here in the Security Council, I focus on women, peace and security, youth, peace and security, children and armed conflict. And I also work on some specific African files. In terms of my career trajectory, I think I probably said this in the questionnaire. Up until recently, I have everything I think. My entrance into the academy, even studying at undergraduate level, was facilitated because I play sport for my country. I play a sport that is little known in the US called netball, but it's primarily played by women in the Commonwealth and in the Caribbean. And so I was able to get scholarships through netball to further my studies. And now in working at the Institute, we do a lot of work with women, civil society organizations, NGOs, and so on, around the area of gender and sexuality, gendered violence, and so on. So I would love to hear more about your work and see if I have an opportunity a little bit more about my work. But it's a real pleasure to be here and to say that mentorship has been really key in terms of the experiences I've had. So thank you. Thank you for letting me be part of this.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. I'm sure our participants are as well. You all have such great stories to share, and I'm sure people can connect with a number of different things you all just shared. So let's move to our next question, and I will try to rearrange the order because I'm a Westfall as my last name, so I understand always being last. So this is a question we're asking next. What is one key factor that motivated the direction your path took? And let's start, Daniel, if you would start next.
I think for me, a key factor is, again, I mentioned earlier in my introduction, the archaeology component more with listening and learning, but I think particularly with gender, it was starting to, in undergraduate, the coursework that I had beginning to was exposed to, even it's sometimes I would even admit to at that age, maybe had to begrudgingly take, in addition to the archaeology, more the applied anthropology course, but continuing to reflect on how gender permeates every aspect of my life with privilege and power, and seeing that. And I think that's, for me, it's really continuing to motivate me forward more, is that continuing to reflect on that power and that privilege and how that's changed. And that reflection continues to change as the different roles that I now see myself occupying, then as a student, then as a partner, and now as a father as I move forward in my career.
Fantastic, thank you. Laura, would you like to share?
Sure. So I was thinking about kind of how I got to where I am, and in my career path, I think rather than a focus on a specific area of work or topic, I think a motivating factor in my career has actually been kind of a philosophy of being open to new experiences and possibilities. And I've kind of made it a policy in my professional life of saying yes to most things as long as my capacity can handle it. And I have really found that that's never failed me. I think I've been exposed to opportunities and roles to build skills and experiences that I probably wouldn't have otherwise. Even when things feel unrelated to my work or a little over my head. I was thinking, for example, I took on the role as a secretary to the senior management team when I was at IFPRI, and it was something that's not particularly glamorous. It's a lot of minute taking and scheduling meetings, but it was an excellent front row seat into learning about how a large international organization is managed and many components of that, and great opportunities to build relationships with the senior management team. And had I said no, I would not have had those experiences. So I think I will continue on my career path to say yes as often as I can.
Wonderful. Halima.
Thanks. It was just fascinating listening to Laura and Danielle talk about turning points. I think for me, I actually did history with literatures in English as my first degree, and I left St. Vincent at 18 years old, and not at 8, at 22 after teaching for 4 years. And I for the first time being in an undergraduate class, I had to do a big research paper, and I think I just got fascinated by research from undergrad. And it was just a chance conversation with one of my mentors who said, you know, by the way, I know you're in history, but there's this opportunity for you to do an MPhil in social policy, and you could pick any topic you want. And I was like, I could research anything I want. And that was a kind of turning point for me. And I was in a research institute for 2 years. But I would say turning points happened in very chance conversations, and there was not a lot of planning very early in terms of where I wanted to be. I wanted to open my own business. I wanted to be a cosmetologist. I wanted to be so many different things, and just conversations and having good community of people around you to kind of help you and direct you to see the possibilities was really important in terms of my own path. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, the liberty of being able to choose a research topic. Isn't that fantastic? Amanda, would you share next?
Sure. So I was reflecting back at this, and I always remember that I was raised by a woman farmer and a male stay-at-home dad. And so, and I think that really transformed the way I looked at people and agriculture as I moved throughout my path. And early on, I took a big risk and moved to Europe to work for the Red Cross. And there, I thought I would just work in disaster relief forever. And I started to understand that maybe I needed to understand better how people become more resilient and more resilient in agriculture. And so, and especially more resilient in terms of disasters. Like, it was very interesting to always think about who I was interacting with that were very resilient. And then thinking back to my mom and how resilient she was as a farmer, who had to do all of the farm work, really. And so I think that's really been motivating me on my path, and helped me switch my path, is just thinking about how to build these intersections between people and agriculture, and then always having in the back of my mind that almost every farmer I interact with is just like my mom.
That's fantastic. What a great perspective. Beth, if you would share next.
So I would say that most of my career choices, the paths I've taken, have been motivated by, I have a deep desire to have my work matter and make a difference. And so, it was never really an option for me just to have a job that made money. But where I am now, when my oldest child was a toddler, it became really clear that being a mother and a reporter for a daily paper were just not going to work. It was taking a toll on me and on him. I had done some reporting on agriculture and the environment, and I was interested in both. A friend who's also a former reporter called me and said, there's this job opening at the university. You probably don't want to work at the university. And I said, no, I'd be interested. And then she said, and it's about this like weird new thing called sustainable agriculture. You probably don't know what that is. I was like, no, I know what it is. And she's like, well, you probably wouldn't be interested in it because it's kind of like not really very big. Or I was like, no, I'd be interested in that. And so she gave me the contact information, and I applied and was hired. And they wanted someone who would write about their projects and their findings, both for farmer audiences and environmental audiences and the general public. That first boss that I had just a really expansive view of what sustainability was, connecting it environmental, economic, and social. And he was just a great mentor for opening up for me the world of what this could be and how we could make a difference. So that, in terms of one key factor, many others along the way.
That is wonderful. That's a great story. Thank you. Batamaka, would you share next?
My story is kind of like Amanda's. I am the sixth child out of 7 of a smallholder polygamous family woman. And I saw the experiences of my mother and how she was managing not only farm work, but also her income generating activities and also the family as a whole. And because I did not have a younger sister, I was doing a lot of the work that girls usually do. And we didn't see any difference in terms of gender, but the difference was in terms of age. So you had to respect whoever is older than you. You owe them respect, not the gender. Anyway, so what I saw gave me some inspiration and admiration for my mother. And it's funny because I never took any anthropology classes in undergraduate. I did my studies in English, and literature. And I said that when you write a story, they say it's fiction. You write a story, a short story, it's fiction. Meanwhile, it's built on the experience, real experience of people. So I was thinking of now talking about things that people will not take as fictitious. And I went to try a class in sociology at the University of Ouagadougou. I couldn't do it because I was 200 kilometers far from the place. Anyway, I read an article from Levi-Strauss, who is an anthropologist, and it mystified me, and I decided that the day I go to the US, I will study anthropology. And I did go there and I studied anthropology, and I now started talking about gender. By the way, my master's thesis here in my country was on women in African literature, but I never said the word gender once because we didn't know it. They were not teaching it. Now, when I grew up, when I matured intellectually, and I got exposed to all the literature, and I think of gender, I think of my mother, and I think of all those women, especially in low-income countries and rural women in low-income countries. And this thought took me to, this window of those category of women opened a larger array for me to look into the development world. And so that's what led me to the gender and development. Thank you.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And Laura, I'm going to ask you to lead us off with our next question. And for our guests, what the question is, what challenges did you encounter and how did you overcome them? Laura?
Sure. I'm not sure if this was a self-imposed challenge, but I think I struggled early on I didn't have a technical expertise, so I wasn't an ag economist or a geographer or a nutritionist. And I found it really hard to see a clear career path for myself forward. And I'm a person who likes structure, so that was really, it was something that I could not see what my next step would be. And so I found that it was helpful to think of a few areas that I was interested in or thought might be transferable to a range of different positions and try to build experience in those areas. So I focused a lot in when I had opportunities for professional development or to seek out new projects and work in my different roles on things like project management and communications and project coordination, and that helped me kind of learn what I was interested in and what I was not interested in, and also forge more of a path if it wasn't clear to me earlier. And so I found a little clarity on my path on the way if it didn't exist at the beginning.
That's great. That perseverance, I think, is important for our audience to hear. Thank you. If we could go to Halima, would you share next?
One of the things I just wanted to say, and it would lead into the question, is I'm really inspired by how the panelists talk about their biographies and their upbringing in kind of the path. And I was thinking about how, for me, I was struggling when I first started doing work on violence, to how do I talk about women's lives in particular, in ways that, because my analysis felt so removed from what I was doing a lot of textual analysis at the time, and it's something I reckon with little in my work. I'm wanting to ensure that it wasn't just for my own curiosity and for my own my own fulfillment, my own desires, my own goals. And I think for me, I had to struggle with some of the ethical and moral responsibilities in doing work on violence. And it's something I always talk about with students in particular, because we work with research communities. We also work with communities of people experiencing violence. And then of course, how this might reach into your own life. So to me, the challenge of knowing that you're doing something that is connected to something larger, which for us in the Caribbean is really important. We don't have the luxury of being a university removed. And I don't know that that is a luxury, of being removed from our communities. And so the work that we do, we have a really large ethical responsibility. And I think that's something that I think about a lot throughout at different stages of my career. in terms of challenge. And I think one of the kind of fundamental and basic challenge that I confronted, and I know many do, is just sometimes self-doubt and the ability to kind of see a larger picture of what you're trying to achieve. And sometimes when you do have those moments of anxiety, spaces and outlets that you can find to help you to think through, whether it's yourself or others or your community of people, family, friends, and so on. So sometimes just managing self-doubt and getting over hurdles in that sort of way, I would say, are some challenges that I would have confronted over time. Thanks.
Thank you. That's a frequent conversation with my graduate students. We're often talking about that and how to overcome it. Daniel, would you please share next?
Thank you, Quarter. And really, I think for me, a challenge is, and what you said, Halima, I think the importance of community and people in community, whether as a graduate student, friends, family, the importance of having those connections that you can engage with and support with. But for me, I think a challenge that I continue to reflect upon is that not taking advantage of those individuals or community in your life that support you in the work that you do. I am always constantly reminded and reflect upon the fact that I am a male gender expert that typically has to travel, but before the pandemic was traveling pretty frequently, leaving my partner at home, and also increasingly a partner, like when our little one was born, and just that, reflecting on that and how maybe the hypocrisy at sometimes, and ensuring that made me reflect upon how do I be more engaged with my partner, be more supportive, and really live into the broader work that has to be done with gender justice. So I think it's just helping me just to reflect. Don't take for granted that challenge, sit in the challenges and reflect upon how you can continue to use your support networks, but don't abuse them.
Wonderful. That's very reflective. Thank you. Batamaka, would you share next?
Yes, thank you. I would mention two challenges. The first one is professional, and the second I would say personal. The first one was at the beginning of my career, after I was hired after my PhD. I went to an environment at the Gates Foundation where I could do the work, but I did not know the technical terms, just like Laura said at the beginning. And it was challenging because there were so many jargon and acronyms I don't know of. Now, how did I solve it? I acknowledged my vulnerability, and I was lucky to have a very kind and supportive office mate. So when we would go to the meetings every time, I'll sit near her. And I had a notebook and a sheet, like a blank sheet. On the notebook, I would take some of the terms and expression or acronyms, and on the sheet, I'll write whatever I thought I needed to understand on the spot, and I push it to her. She'll write what it means and send it back to me. So that allowed me to follow progressively. Now, when I left the meeting, I would go home and make sure that I do some research on the expression or terms that were used. And also I'll see the connected or the cognitive terms or concepts. This helped me, mature. The second challenge related to what Daniel said, it's personal, it's about family. As I started the work and I get to a certain level, I noticed that in 4 years, I spent slightly over 100 days with my family. And I decided that this is not the kind of life I want to be. I don't want to be a Wi-Fi dad, as I like saying. So at some point, I decided to stop what I was doing and to reorient my professional career, because I was also confident that I had equipped myself enough experience to do my own stuff. So yeah, that's why I came back to Burkina Faso, and I'm giving 50% of my time to the McKnight Foundation and the rest of my time to my own business and to the social and community stuff. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Beth, if you would please share next.
Yeah, so I have, I guess, 3 challenges. And the first was very similar to Laura's about not really having a technical area of expertise and trying to figure out how to be respected as a generalist in some environments was a challenge. And I think just as I built my competency in a variety of skills, it came. The second was finding and in some cases making my team. And having a team of people who I really enjoy working with. And those were people who were maybe like me, but also people who really complemented my skills and temperament, who would see things differently and sometimes rein me in. Was important, bring a different perspective. And then the third thing, which I continue to struggle with, is balance between family and work. And I see that as a challenge with many of the women farmers and other extension workers and academics that I come into contact with. And so there's always more work that I could do. There's always another farmer I could call back or help look at their stuff. But then I only have one chance to like raise my family and give my children what they need to grow into the amazing people that they are and are going to be. So that is a tension that I feel all the time. And I'm trying to get better at it. It's a work in progress.
Thank you, Beth. The participants appreciate that. One has said when you figure it out, they'd like you to share. And others have said, thank you for bringing that point to the conversation. And with that, Amanda, if you'd like to share your perspective.
Yeah, so my challenge was very similar to Halima's. And I had written that one of my biggest struggles has been dealing with ethical conundrums and being asked to, from time to time, by people who have greater power than me, to compromise my ethical stances. And figuring out how to navigate the power structures it has just really been an ongoing challenge, even though I am getting gray hair and I feel like I should be able to be more powerful. And I would say that I'm still not, and I tell my students this all the time, that I'm still not perfect at this. I've tried a lot of things. I took a crucial conversations class so that I could figure out how to have those crucial conversations. I journal a lot extensively to try to understand my position and where I should, how I should approach things and whether the things that I'm realizing for myself are true or not. I quit a job because of ethics and also tried to get a PhD and probably got my PhD because I wanted to be able to navigate those power structures. So what I've learned is that, I feel like trying hard to stand up for others and stepping back and understanding how to navigate what is right and wrong is an ongoing challenge, but one that I've really trying to start to embrace and feel more comfortable doing as I have more experience. But like Halima, it's very difficult.
It's always challenging. Thank you so much. And to lead, I'm going to ask Halima to lead on our last question. What do you wish you had known when you were a student that could have helped you with your career? Halima?
I would say just to be a little gentle and kinder with yourself. Give yourself grace. And I say that because I've always had, and when I think I got scholarships, I was grateful for getting scholarships early on. So I've always felt this responsibility to ensure that I don't waste those opportunities. So I would say, looking back, just be a little gentler and kinder with yourself. And I wanted to just say one very little thing outside of the question, which is I'm really grateful for this conversation about family, and especially in the time that we find ourselves in now. I see transitions in good ways and in not so good ways with my own son, because I'm working with him primarily from home for the most part. Only recently, he's gone back to school for 2 days a week. And I say that to say that I have to constantly remind myself to be kinder and gentler with myself, because you can engage in some self-harm practices because you are so hard on yourself, and wanting to do well for yourself and for others on behalf of others. So I would just say, be kinder with yourself, give yourself time, give yourself grace, and know that you're good to others and they are good to you, and things will fall into place if you give it time, and feel making mistakes along the way is part for the course. So just be gentle with yourself, I would say.
Thank you so much. Amanda, please share your perspective on this.
So I wish I have 3 of them. And so I said, I wish I would have understood that it wasn't that important to have like a job label, like I'm a rural sociologist or I'm an economist, but to embrace that interdisciplinariness of our work, and that it was okay to do that. And I wish that somebody had told me early on that I could have been a little bit more brave and adventurous as a youngster and taken opportunities. I was always in college, in my undergrad, I was always so worried about paying for it and, working so hard that I didn't really do a lot of things that were outside of school. And then I wish somebody would have told me that I would have had 6 different jobs throughout my life, and that was also going to be very rewarding and interesting and fun. And yeah, this is probably not my last job either. So, who knows?
Thank you so much. And I've just to warn all of ourselves, we have like 7 minutes left, and I'm going to Beth next.
So what I had written down was, don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. But I really liked the way that Halima talked about it, about giving ourselves grace, and yeah. So I'll stop there. She did a great job explaining that.
Good. Batamaka.
Sorry. So I truly wish I had opportunity to interact with people who work in the non-academic world. Because sometimes my impression is that, especially in grad school, professors teach students to become professors. Meanwhile, there are other jobs out there. I have missed this, and we've experienced and noticed that we've training in the humanities and social sciences, especially within in this context of interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary world, you can do nearly everything and many things. I'm training anthropology, and I'm currently taking care of agroecological stuff. People think I'm an agronomist. I'm not. And it's good, but there are opportunities out there for which graduate students are qualified, but because they were not socialized, they sometimes feel doubt when they read a job description. They don't know they can do it. Meanwhile, they can do it. However, because they don't know jargon, for the lack of interaction with people within those spaces, they doubt themselves, and they miss the opportunity and leave it to people with probably less qualification who take it. And this relates to my own experience, because if I were not lucky enough to have been headhunted, I might not have applied for the job for which I was hired. Because when I read the job description, I'm like, what is this? There were those terms I couldn't understand. Meanwhile, when I got there, after a few weeks of socialization, I started doing it, and successfully so. The second thing I wish I had done was to have taken a monitoring and evaluation class. And if any grad student or undergrad student is following here, I would encourage them very highly to take monitoring and evaluation classes. Just only one. It will be very, very helpful in anything, not just in looking for a job. Even for your own stuff, it can be useful. And also, I wish I had got some people who talk to me more about entrepreneurship, to allow me to initiate anything. And of course, I'm speaking as a person from the humanities and the social sciences. Sometimes people of those disciplines feel a little bit desperate in this technical high-tech world. Meanwhile, high tech and artificial intelligence has also created a niche for human and social sciences. We just need to be more creative and imaginative, and we'll find a spot and a niche. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll go to Daniel next.
Yeah, I mean, kind of just building immediately upon what Batamaka said about monitoring, evaluation, and learning. Yes, definitely take a quantitative course, but also, you know, don't be afraid. Your experience as a social scientist is of value, and claim that space in increasingly with this field of monitoring, evaluation, and learning. There's so many more opportunities, even thinking back with an undergraduate, where it was like, you can be a field technician, an archaeologist, or you're an anthropologist, and you may not get a job after you graduate. And I was like, well, that's not, and just knowing now that's completely not true. There's so many opportunities beyond the classroom. And I think it also, for me, it's really heartening to hear others echo the interdisciplinary component, and that take as many methods courses as you want to learn about different approaches, and don't be afraid to learn about those, you know, even just to sit on some things to Google, just learn as many methods, whether it's participatory mapping, survey design, quality, just take advantage of it as an opportunity while you have in graduate school or your undergraduate program.
Wise advice. And Laura.
Yeah, I build off of what Daniel is saying. I think your time as a student is an amazing opportunity to gain experience in all sorts of realms. It doesn't just need to be related to your degree. If you have an interest in graphic design and you're able to audit a class, or, you know, even just have access to a university's license to Adobe or something, you know, there are amazing resources at universities and college, and it may not feel like it, but you probably have more time than you will down the line as a student. And it's a great time to, to just explore all of those possibilities. And they don't need to be directly related to what you see as your career path. I think you can build all sorts of skills that will contribute to your life down the line in many ways.
If one of you would like to indicate to me that your willingness to respond to a participant question, how does the lack of preparedness action from larger or more powerful institutions play a role in making these women be resilient in the US and abroad? Who would like to respond? Anyone?
Sure.
Amanda?
Well, I remember seeing that question in the last session, the one that I was in with Hazel.
I think that's something that, as you've listened to stories, it'd be wonderful to follow up by email with particular people and have a dialogue about that, because I think that's a conversation and not just a response to a question. I think you can receive more in that way. How can we minimize participant burden on these times of crisis and in general as well? Any thoughts? Batamaka? You're unmuted, so I thought maybe you're willing.
No, actually, I didn't hear the question well. How do you minimize what?
The burden on participants because of such things that we were talking about, the burdens of our jobs and things. That's fine. Elizabeth posed that question, and perhaps you can, Elizabeth, you can direct that to one of the participants, and specifically through the other communications. And that does wrap up our time here. There are just a couple more questions left that I think I encourage you all to utilize the attendee section of the website, because it's very useful in being able to have direct communication with our panelists as well as others at the conference. And I think that's a wonderful aspect of this platform, even though we're not in person, and that would always be better. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Maria and thank her for giving us an opportunity to bring this group together and visit as a group. I think we've all had a good time.
Wow, I'm just amazed that you got through all those questions with all these mentors, career conversationists. Thank you all for participating. I think the people enjoyed the conversation. It wasn't, Donna actually facilitated this conversation in our first conference, where we had people sitting in the front of the ballroom while everybody had lunch, and it was we had an opportunity for people to come up and stand by the microphones and ask questions, and we just didn't have time in this occasion. So, but like we've said, go look up people's profiles under the exhibitor. You can do the drop down if you're on the computer and look up career conversation or career corner, I think we called it. But we have, let's see, Becky, are you there?
I am.
Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to Becky to do the final wrap up. I want to thank all of you. I know that all of you who are on this panel are very busy and have some of the challenges which you mentioned. A lot of you are dealing with, just different kinds of issues that are putting demands from your job, your work-life balance, everything. So I just really want to acknowledge that, and thank you for doing this as a extra service to contribute to people.
All right, and I will echo that. Thank you, panelists. That was a great conversation, and so many important points that you brought up that I think that we can all very much, feel in that, especially in that balancing with the family and all of that. It was wonderful. I really appreciate it. So just a couple of announcements before we go today. Just a reminder of our agenda tomorrow. We will have a keynote address by Dr. Carolyn Sachs. We're very excited about that. We'll have two really great panels, one on women, land, and power, and the other on the colonial development experiment. So please come back and join us for those great talks and panels. And then afterwards, we will reveal the winners of the student posters and the scavenger hunt and the Twitter award. We will also have a final discussion with Dr. Deborah Rubin on our big picture conversation, what's next, what's on the horizon. And then please stay at 1 o'clock for our post-conference networking session, where you can choose and move between 3 discussions, either an open discussion on careers, or a discussion on diversity and inclusion. Go ahead, Caroline. Was that it? Was it just one slide? Great. Oh, here we go. Don't forget to visit our virtual exhibitor center if you are looking for the 4-minute flash talks or the posters or the career corner or the World Cafe. Click on that exhibitor tab, and then from there, you'll be able to see where all of those great events are. Okay. And thanks again to our conference sponsors and our volunteers from the University of Florida. Thank you, everybody. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for our last day.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone. Take care.
Take care. Thank you again to the panelists. It's just wonderful to hear your stories and to be so authentic. You can see in the comments that how valuable that was to the participants. So thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you for the moderation.
Yes,
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you.
Bye-bye.
It was fun to be with you all.
Take care.